What is up, guys? In today's video, we're going to talk about the 5 things I hate about the Yamaha YZF R7. Alright guys, so let's talk about the 5 things I hate about the Yamaha YZF R7. So the first thing is going to be the digital dash. Take a look at this nonsense. It's tucked behind the freaking clutch cable. When you're riding, the cable actually blocks your odometer and some of the other information down on the bottom of the screen there, like your clock, which is incorrect, by the way. It's not 6:30 in the morning or at night. And your some of your other indicators. It's also black on the back screen, and it's just not great. In the sun, you can barely see it. If you have a tinted visor, it's even worse. When it comes to optionality on the screen, you don't have a lot. You got your average miles per gallon, you've got your temperature, you've got your air temperature, your odometer, trip 1, trip 2, miles per gallon in current state, and that's it. So, very basic functionality on the digital dash here, and I just don't like it. I actually like the MT07 dash better, and I never thought I'd say that, because that dash sucked too. So, yeah, you sort of are stuck with this this dash on this thing. I haven't seen anybody do any modifications, so I mean, it sort of is what it is. You have this little sunshade, which, you know, for whatever that's worth, but you can still barely see it. The second thing I hate about the YZF R7 is the seat. I know, this is going to be subjective. Most of these things are, so don't destroy me in the comments, but the seat, I think, is just meh at best. It's the same seat, I want to say, as the MT07, which I wasn't a huge fan of on that motorcycle. So if I end up keeping this bike long term, the seat is definitely something that I will do to modify to make it more comfortable on longer rides for me, personally. But again, the seat is a super subjective thing. So what I would say is, if you're looking at buying this motorcycle, go to a dealer, sit on it, test ride it if you can. That's most important. Spend some time riding on this motorcycle and then form your own opinion. But I think the seat is just not that great. The third thing I hate about the YZF R7, and again, this is subjective, but is the overly aggressive riding position. What Yamaha tried to do, I think, is take the MT07, which is the naked variant of this exact same motorcycle, with some slight tweaks, of course, and basically make it a fully fared, we'll call it a race bike. What I think they could have done is actually lowered the rear sets a little bit more, and maybe even raised up the triple tree slightly to give it a more street ergonomic feel. It's interesting what Yamaha did here, so hear me out on this. They market this bike as a get around town street motorcycle, right? That you can rip around on city streets. It's not really meant for the high speed riding. It's not really meant, so to speak, for like racing on the track. You know, they sort of market this bike as a city ripper, right? Get on it, rip around town, stoplight to stoplight. And then they make the ergonomics super aggressive. So, you know, go from an MT07 to an R7. I understand why they did it, sort of. But I think they could have done a couple little things to make it more comfortable when you're marketing it to a get-around-town, you know, street ripper, right? It doesn't make a lot of sense to make it so aggressive where it's sort of uncomfortable to go to streetlight if that is the thing that they're marketing. So anyway, personal opinion there, but I think Yamaha made this a little overly aggressive. So take that for what it's worth. Again, go sit on this motorcycle, test ride it. I think you guys will still enjoy it. It's just a little bit too aggressive for me personally, just as a get around town, rip around town motorcycle. The fourth thing I hate about this motorcycle, and this is kind of silly to say because I knew what I was buying when I bought it, and anybody who buys this motorcycle presumably is going to know what it is, but it's actually the horsepower and torque numbers. And I know I said in the 5 things I love video that I like the engine and I like the CP2 engine, and that is true, but this is sort of the other side of that. I think Yamaha could have enhanced the engine just a little bit. I think they could have bumped up the horsepower and torque numbers. Now, that being said, which I think Yamaha will eventually get to a YZF R9, you know, that probably is going to have 120, 130 horsepower. It'll probably have the triple cylinder versus the 2-cylinder engine. It'll probably have Yamaha's CP3 versus the CP2. But the variance is so far. 50 horsepower to like 125 horsepower. I think they could have bumped the numbers up on this motorcycle to give this a little bit more of an edge for those folks who did want to take it to the track and rip a little faster. For those guys who want to ride this on the highway a little bit more regularly, I think they could have done something to enhance the engine with the horsepower and torque numbers just a little bit more. I don't quite think that's enough. I mean, it is super lightweight, which is cool, but I don't think that's quite enough to get you ripping on the highway like I know you guys like to do, and riding this thing like a super sport motorcycle should be. It's kind of odd. It's got that super aggressive look, the more street-oriented horsepower and torque numbers, and it's somewhere in the middle. But I do like the look of it a lot. I love the sound of it a lot. But again, I think the horsepower and torque numbers could have been bumped up quite a bit. So the fifth and final thing I hate about this motorcycle is the suspension. Hear me out on this. I think the bike rides okay, but what I think it lacks is adjustability. You have the single rear spring down there, which has some adjustability. So you do have the upside down forks, and you do have some adjustability on the top of the triple tree here for your front forks as well. But I think for the price, for just a few more dollars, I would actually pay for like an Öhlins suspension on this. I think that would give it a lot more trackability. I think that would give this bike a lot more handling feel. I think personally that this bike feels a little bit too much like the MT-07, where they could have bumped up the suspension and made it a little bit tighter and a little bit better. That's just, again, a little bit more personal, but I feel like they could have done something to up the suspension, you know, add in $300 more and give me an Öhlins front and rear suspension. They could easily do that if they started building these in mass production, but they opted on just a very basic suspension for this motorcycle. Again, you have adjustability on the front forks, which is nice. It's very MT-07 ride quality-esque, obviously being a little bit tighter. And guys, I couldn't let you go without giving you a little bit of bonus in this video. I think distance riding on this motorcycle sucks. Going back to my overly aggressive riding stance, you're putting, again, a lot of pressure on your wrists when you're riding on this motorcycle. You are in a super aggressive position. And so, again, that is subjective. With age comes more pain. So, you know, again, if you're a younger guy and you're riding this motorcycle, you're probably going to be fine for distance riding. But if you want to take this thing on like a road trip or ride for like 4 or 5, 6 hours in a day, you're going to be feeling that. You're going to be feeling it in your lower back. You're going to be feeling it in your wrists and arms. And you're going to be feeling it in your knees, too. If you're getting on the highway and you're going to be ripping this thing for a long period of time, I will tell you what, you're going to be aching over riding an MT-07. And so, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Again, I would be remiss if I did not say I absolutely love this motorcycle, which is one of the reasons I bought it. I think the engine is just butter. I love the sound of this motorcycle. I love the looks and the style of this motorcycle. If you haven't done so, watch the 5 things I love about the YZF R7 right up here. But I think this bike overall is really solid. If you made it this far in the video, do me a favor, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, it's free, it helps me out a ton, and click that bell to get notified when more videos come out. Thank you so much for watching. We will see you in the next video. Later.